Hello everyone, I wanted to make a video going over my server setup. In the last video I went ahead and showed you my server rack, and this will be going into all of the servers that I have and what runs on each server. So let's go ahead and get into it. Starting here, you will see my vSphere. I have 3 hosts within this. Currently has about 76 gigahertz of CPU available. There is about 224 gigabytes of RAM between all the servers that I have running in this, and about 6 terabytes of solid state storage. So if we go over here to menu and then we go to our hosts and clusters, this will show all of the clusters within here. So starting with the Pi cluster, I actually have 2 Raspberry Pis that I have running, and these currently are not running any services. I was running a secondary instance of Pi-hole for a while, but I kept having issues with it, so I went ahead and just moved my secondary instance over to my primary cluster, and right now nothing is running on the Raspberry Pis. I need to do a little bit more troubleshooting with the Raspberry Pis within ESXi to get them working properly. But we can move on to the primary cluster, and this is what hosts my R620 and my R420 servers. Starting with my OpenVPN access server. OpenVPN is great. It allows you to access things inside your network through a VPN tunnel that you can have set up on your phone or on a computer. Super awesome. If you haven't heard of it, I would highly recommend to look into it to securely access all of your items from the internet. Moving on is my monitoring server. This runs Ubuntu. Now most of these servers do run Ubuntu, as you see the naming schemes as UB is for Ubuntu. And I have a couple of things running just to monitor different things across my servers. The next instance is going to be Overseer. This is a request management system for Plex. Next is my primary Pi-hole that I have running. Pi-hole is a DNS ad blocker. I'd like to do a video going in depth on Pi-hole and how I got mine set up so I can have 2 instances running. It also is a recursive DNS, so when there is a DNS query, it has the DNS straight on my system, and it reaches out directly to whoever's DNS it needs, and it pulls that information. It's a little bit more secure, which I really like. I also have an iPerf server. iPerf is great for measuring network performance across different servers, and I love having this just running at all times. So if I'm on my Unraid, for example, I can just quickly do an iPerf test over here and make sure that my speeds are running as they should. And then I have it's called New Dashboard. I used to have another dashboard, and then I decided to change it, and I had called it New Dashboard, and I just haven't changed it. But it's just so I can have one page that I can go to access all of my applications that run across my servers. Then I have Tatuli. Tatuli is a great system for monitoring Plex, and it shows you a lot of great stats. You can send out newsletters, news agents. Then we'll go ahead and move over to NGINX Proxy Manager. This is so I can have things open on the commercial internet for my friends and family to quickly access, like my Plex server or Overseer. Moving on, I have Post.io. This is a mail server. It is a really great server that you can set up in Docker. It only takes a few minutes as long as you have the backend system already set up for your reverse DNS. Now, a lot of things to keep in note. A lot of ISPs block port 25, which is needed, and they also will not allow you to change your pointer record for your IP. I was lucky enough to where my ISP allowed all of that, so I was able to get my own mail server set up. And then I have Radar and Sonar. These both run in a Windows server, and as well as 4K Radar. The 4K Radar is actually set up in a headless Windows server, which is nice. It basically just doesn't have a GUI to access anything. You have to do everything from the command prompt windows. But Radar is to pull movies, Sonar is to pull TV shows. And then I have my deployment server. This is great. I can deploy Windows across the network through Pixie booting. So if I need to re-image one of my laptops, I can just connect to the network, pixie boot it, and pull an image straight across the network, and it's a lot faster than a CD or thumb drive. Moving on is Prowler. Prowler is a replacement for Jacket, which connects to radar and sonar, and it basically allows the indexers to work properly. And I have my web server. Now I have web servers running within Docker, as well as most of these other things that are running in Ubuntu. Next I have my Pi-hole 2, which is my secondary Pi-hole server. Now this is set up on a different host. As you see, this first Pi-hole is set up on my R420, and this one, actually it looks like it's also set up on my R420, so I'll have to migrate that over to my R620, which is a great thing with vSphere. If you want to migrate one of these servers over to another host, you just right click, hit migrate, and we just need to change the compute resource because the storage is hosted on SAN, or Storage Area Network. So we can go ahead and move it over to my R620. Hit next, hit next, hit next, and finish. Now we'll go ahead and just work in the background of migrating over to that server. And as you see, it's already almost done. Now this one here is going to be my next server that I have set up. I'm just not sure what to put on that yet. And then this Ubuntu 6 Docker, this is essentially a test system. So for most of my tests for Docker systems, I usually set up an Unraid first, and then I move it over to this to make sure that it works within ESXi. And then once I confirm that it works, I set up another virtual machine specifically for that application I want to run. That is it for the primary cluster, and then we have my R320, my Dell PowerEdge R320. This runs vCenter server. This is the system that we have here. And then we also run a file share with SSD storage, and then we have my domain controller 2. So that's pretty much it for my ESXi system. We can go ahead and move over to my Unraid. Now Unraid is great. I use it for a backup of my Plex server, and I also use it to test a whole bunch of Docker containers before I move it over to production. Now there is a few things that run production on here, which I would like to move over eventually over to my ESXi cluster, but I haven't got around to that quite yet. Within this Unraid server, I have two 6-core CPUs, about 40 gigabytes of RAM, and I got that 10 gigabit NIC fixed, so 10 gigabit is working on this server now. Within Docker, I have quite a few things that run, the first being Home Assistant. Then I have Cacheit. This is basically a monitoring system for all of my servers. I have Prometheus, which is a database system. I have Grafana that runs, that basically just pulls statistics off of my Unify equipment. And this is basically the databases that it uses. And then I have Pidio Cells, which is basically a cloud server. This is the database for that. I have Redar on here. I have OpenManage, which allows me to access more in-depth controls on my server. I run Deluge on here. Another Overseer instance. This is actually a developer version of Overseer. And then 5M. It's currently stopped right now because I don't use it a whole lot, but occasionally I like to spin up GTA 5 and just play from the 5M server. I don't have any VMs that are actually running here. As you see, these are both stopped. They were basically just testing, and I couldn't figure out how to get the actual ISO for Home Assistant to work. That's why I set it up within Docker. But that is pretty much it for my Unraid server. Let me go ahead and open up a remote desktop connection to my Plex server. Here's my Plex server. As you can see, the cool background that I found. On this, I just run a couple of different tools like Wireshark and Nmap, a couple other things, just so I can make sure that the network performance is working as it should. And if I need to troubleshoot anything, I have that available. And I like to have that just on hand, so if somebody messages me and they say that they're having issues with using Plex, I can check the network statistics and make sure everything is looking good. I also run a program called Free File Sync. This is really great. It allows me to back up all of my movies and TV shows folders over to my Unraid system, and it does it automatically. Within here you also see your RAM disk, which is fantastic. I can come into here and I have a RAM disk set up, which is basically for Plex cache. It basically uses about 30 gigabytes of RAM, and it creates a super quick disks that I can actually host those or have those like cache files go to, and it just makes everything super quick when watching Plex movies. But I think that's pretty much it for my servers here. Went over, I believe, every single server that I have. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I like to make more videos like this, or going into depth on how to set up these applications in this type of environment. Between Windows, Linux, and Unraid, which I guess Unraid is part of Linux. But if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll make another video. Thanks, everyone.